All right. Should we
You're
get
at 5,
going?
Heather. Whenever
5
you're
o'clock?
ready.
Okay. So I was supposed to call someone to figure out how to get everybody onto a single screen for me, but I didn't make that call. So I'm still going to be toggling between 2 screens. But we'll call the meeting to order at 5 o'clock. Thank you everyone for being here. And thank you to the public that's watching on YouTube. Let's see, I need to confirm board members, don't I? The voting members. All right, I'll go through. I have, for Mount Desert, I have Heather Jones, Teresa King-LeClaire, and Kate Chaplin. For Bar Harbor, I have Dwayne Bolt. I guess, actually, I need to hear from you guys that you're here. So Teresa. Hearing no Teresa. And
Here, I'm here.
Oh, there you are. All right. Kate Chaplin. I haven't seen her. All right. Kate's not here. All right. So for Bar Harbor, I have Dwayne Bolt.
I'm here.
I see you. Yep. Robin Sue Tapley. I saw you. Marie Yarborough.
Here.
Yep. Saw you. Thank you. And Lily Simas.
I'm here.
All right, great, thank you. Voters for Southwest, I only have John Bench, Jim Sawyer down.
I'm a voter, Heather. Ingrid.
And anybody else?
Susan Allen is here.
I forgot to sign up, so I'm here, but I'm not a voter.
Okay, sorry.
Okay. Do we know who else is?
Susan, you are a voter because John Bench is not here tonight.
Oh, he's not. Okay. All right. Okay.
So I have Ingrid and Jim Sawyer and Susan Allen for voting members. And you're all here. I see you, Jim. All right. For Tremont, I have Heidi Lawson.
Here.
Nice to see you. And Jessica Stewart. I thought I
Here.
saw you. Yeah. Okay, great. And that's all I have for voting members and attending. For Trenton, I have Gary
You hear me?
Burr.
Yes, I'm here.
Who's that? Who was that just said that they're here?
That was Jessica Stewart.
Yeah. Oh, yes, Jessica, I did hear you. Thanks. So for Trenton, I have Gary Burr. And I see you, Gary. And Aaron Brown.
Hello. Yes.
Hey, there you are. All right, great. Swans Island, I don't have anybody, but I feel like Tammy is here.
Yes, she is.
All right, great. And then I don't have anybody for Cranberry or Frenchboro. Is anybody here from that?
I don't see them, Heather.
Okay, wonderful.
Is it okay
All
to
right.
still vote if you didn't sign up, Heather?
I'm sorry, what?
Tammy. It's Tammy. If I didn't sign up, is it okay to still vote, or? how's
Oh,
that?
absolutely. Yeah, I'm just trying to clean up the sheet so that when we do have a vote, I go through and
Yeah.
get everybody and don't miss anyone.
Heather, this is Jessica Stewart. My Zoom got weird and I got kicked off for a second, but did you get me?
I did get you, Jessica.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Heather, I'm here too for Trenton, Darcy.
Okay, great. And are you a voter, Darcy?
Tom's not here, so I think I have to, right? Or should.
All right. Great. I have you on there.
Heather, it's Kate Chaplin. I'm here and I'm voting for Mount Desert too.
Correct. Yep. All right. I think I have everybody now. All right. Approval of the voucher via DocuSign. That went around. Hopefully everybody's seen that. And then the next is approval of minutes from May 4, 2020.
So moved. Heidi.
All right. Is there a second?
Lily.
Lily, thank you. Are there any comments or changes? Edits? All right, hearing none, we will now go through and vote. So Heather Jones, I approve. Teresa LeClaire.
Yes, I approve. Thanks.
Kate Chaplin.
Approved.
Kate, you might be on mute. Okay.
Yeah, no, I got it.
Dwayne Bolt.
Approve.
All right. Robin Sue Tapley. Thank you. Marie Yarborough.
Approve.
Thank you. Lily Simas.
Approve.
Thanks. Susan Allen.
Approve.
Okay. Ingrid Kashmar
Approve.
and Jim Sawyer.
Approve.
Thank you. Heidi Lawson.
Approve.
Jessica Stewart.
Approve.
Thank you. Gary Burr.
Approve.
Thank you. Darcy Throckmorton
Approve.
and Aaron Brown.
Approve.
Thank you. And then Tammy Tripler.
Approve.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Next, we move to public comment. And I have, hold on, I gotta find it. We received 5 public comment letters. And I need to read them into the meeting. So I'll go through and read those. And like I said, there's 5. It's in no particular order. The first one is from Susan Whitby, who's a speech and language therapist from Trenton Elementary School. She says, hello, I'm writing to ask you, the AOS board, to write a statement for our community, for our families, for our kids, and for the teachers that we as a school district and union will make the topic of racism and discrimination of all kinds a priority for discussion in all of our classrooms from pre-K through 12th grade. The ugly truth of the ever-present racism in America has come to the forefront of everyone's mind in our country with the most recent killings of unarmed Black adults. And I believe the time is ripe to reflect, plan, and take meaningful action to move this country toward a place where everyone is truly treated equally. As educators, I believe we have a critical role in helping our youth understand the founding principle of our democracy, that all men and women are created equal. As a school district, I think this principle should be embedded in our mission statement. Thank you for your consideration. That was the first one. The second letter is from Maria Simpson. And she writes, Dear AOS board and MDI RSS leadership, like all of you, I was devastated by the brutal murder of George Floyd in the hands of white police officers last week. The resulting protests that have erupted across the country show that none of us can sit on the sidelines in the fight to end systemic racism. Thank you. Dr. Gauss and Dr. Meltzer for publicly denouncing racism and stating clearly that Black lives matter. I got into education as you did because I believe in its power, the power to transform individual lives, but also transform society. However, as I watched the events of last week, I know this power is not distributed equally, and worse, schools and teachers can perpetuate racist systems of oppression. I believe that each of us has the responsibility to examine ourselves, our classrooms, and our institution. We are leaders, so we must lead by committing ourselves to a more just system, that this transcends politics. Here are some concrete steps I would urge the board and leadership to consider. First is professional development for teachers and administrators on the anti-bias education, teaching tolerance, and the Racial Equity Institute are just 2 that offer high quality workshops. Second point, develop a task force or collaboratory to examine our curriculum and develop goals and desired outcomes. 3, gather data. We have tons of data on students, test scores, disciplinary actions, demographics. What does this data tell us? Who benefits the most in our school system and who is most negatively impacted? The 4th and final point, review IMB teaching about controversial sensitive issues. I think it's an important and commendable to offer guidelines for teachers to engage in meaningful dialogue. However, I find the language of the document confusing and potentially silencing to teachers. Even labeling certain topics as sensitive can warn away teachers from hard topics in the classroom. Instead, consider that dialogue is not optional, but essential in our classrooms. Instead, offer us training on how to have these conversations in a way that empowers students. Thank you for all the work that you do on behalf of students in school. I look forward to engaging in this important work alongside you. The third letter comes from Jacqueline Bolt. She says, hello, I attended a Black Lives Matter gathering in the Village Green on Sunday evening with my daughter. There were several students who spoke publicly. One of them had me sobbing at the rally. I'm appalled by what this well-spoken young man said happened during his 2019 MDI high school football season. I reached out Sunday evening to Mr. Haney, Mr. Braun, and Dr. Gauss by sharing my thoughts in the video that my daughter took. In my email, I said that I need to know what I can do to support the three of them to see changes made. The rally and Charlie's speech was brought up in this morning's staff meeting, and I was asked for permission to share the video, of which I did. Mr. Braun is actively looking into this issue. I asked for the board's support in helping MDI high school staff and teachers in addressing the issues. I sent a letter to the editor as well, and I am told that it will be in the Thursday's paper. The letter is not to the editor directly, but to the mamas of the 2019 MDI high school football team. I asked them to sit down with their sons and talk to them. Their sons may not have said the N-word. They may not have heard the others say it, but most definitely their sons have heard about the goings on in the field in the locker room. I suggested that after they talk with their sons, they have their sons to reach out to the school, acknowledge and apologize for their part in it. I would hope the sons will be part of the change. Most definitely, there should be a program to address racism before the very first football practice. If there isn't a fall season due to COVID-19, the players should still go through the racism program. I am fighting for Charlie's rights, and I hope he will choose to be in the 2020 season. I will be there for his first game cheering him on. I asked for the board's support in ensuring there is an anti-racism program. In the end of the video, Charlie asked us to do something if his story motivated us. So Charlie, I have heard you, and I will share your video directly. The fourth letter comes from Kate Mako from Bar Harbor. She says, Dear AOS 91 and CES leadership, Connors Emerson leadership, I am an alumna of MDI High School, the parent of a student, and the partner of a teacher, both at Connors Emerson. Our educational communities are very important to me. Because of our country's current anti-racist uprising, it occurred to me I don't know much about how our schools address systemic racism, both in the K-12 classroom curricula and in training and support for the teachers. Is there an action plan and a set of resources that you would be willing to share with me? I've seen a number of excellent versions from school systems elsewhere in Maine, but don't know where to find this information for our schools. And the fifth letter comes from Rachel Singh and says, Dear school board members, the recent murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery, I'm sorry if I'm not saying it right, have shaken me and so many others in our community and in our country. George, Breonna, and Ahmaud deserved better than those deaths. Our children deserve a better world than this one. I believe that all of us, teachers, administrators, parents, and school board members, are working together to build a better world for our kids, our communities, and so I am ready to ask you for help. I appreciate Mark and Julie's unequivocal statements that Black lives are in our school enough, and now we must act on that belief. What measures must we take as a district to show that?
Heather, you just froze up. I think she's going to try to reconnect with a hotspot. So if we could just hold for a second. She had some technology issues.
You know what? I've had trouble all day today, and I'm really sorry.
It's okay.
You hear? Okay.
You're back, Heather. Thanks.
Okay. Sorry about that. So I don't. Was I gone for a while, or?
You were at what measures
You were about 10 seconds. I think if you begin with the third paragraph, Heather, you'll be fine.
Great, good. First, we need to train teachers on how racial biases appear in the classroom and our curriculum. The issues of bias and racism are playing out every day in our classroom, most especially for our students of color. Students at the high school have spoken out against the casual racism they have experienced from their peers and teachers. I am inspired by their courage and eloquence. We must take their experiences seriously and commit to do better. Second, we as a district need to develop a framework for examining and evaluating our curriculum for bias. Just as it is harmful for Black and Brown children to never see themselves represented in classroom materials, I believe we are also cheating our white students of the opportunity to become responsible and involved citizens and integrated and informed thinkers, as our mission statement promises. If we teach them that everyone in the world looks like them and lives like them, it is our responsibility as educators to open doors to the wider world for our students. Some people would call these political issues that have no place in the classroom, but issues of identity, oppression, and belonging play out every day in our students' lives, whether our eyes are open to them or not. If we do not help our students make sense of these complex issues, we are failing them as educators. It's our responsibility to our students to meet the challenges of the world. The last few weeks have shown that racism continues to be an ugly and persistent problem in our society. We all must rise to the challenge of doing our part and end racism and build a better world for our children. As a person of color who has spent a lot of time thinking about how to build an anti-racist classroom, I'm happy to talk to anyone who has questions about anything I've said in this email. I do not know what it is like to be Black in this country.
Well, Heather just left, so I'll just finish that. I do not know what I do not know what it's like to be Black in this country, but I know at a very personal level what it is like to experience racism. And I want to do what I can to support this anti-racist work in my community. Thank you so much for listening and for your work to support our students in schools. Sincerely, Rachel Singh. I think we're waiting for Heather to come back.
I'm back.
Okay, so Heather, I finished
I'm
the
here.
statement for you.
I heard that, thank you. Thank you. This is gonna be a problem. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So that was the public comment, and the way we're handling public comment right now is it gets submitted and then we'll read it into the record. One of the things Mark and I will talk about is responding to everybody in particular, because I think, you know, since they've reached out, we need to have some sort of a response. Mark, I will turn it over to you to start the reports and update.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. It's very hard to follow those public comments, but I appreciate folks reaching out, and I'll have a few words on that in a moment. But I would like to shift to something a bit more positive and timely. I want to send my very best regards to all of our students. It's been a very difficult final third of the year. To all of our students who will be promoted and our 8th graders that will be attending the high school, congratulations. To all of our students that are advancing to other grade levels, we're very, very proud of you. And certainly the Mount Desert Island High School class of 2020, our hearts go out to them. We had a wonderful ceremony yesterday led by our principal, Mr. Haney, and I can't say enough how proud I am of the students, the parents, and the community with their patience and their support in that ceremony. It was really something very, very special and unique to them, and I give them my very best. I would like to also say how much we appreciate parents and communities for their support during this period of remote learning and COVID-19. Too many people to name, too many good deeds, uh, in terms of support for our students and our schools, and just amazing the community response. We want you to know that doesn't go unnoticed, and we want you to know we can't thank you enough. We're very appreciative of our teachers, our nurses, our ed techs, our counselors, food service folks, our technology individuals, our custodians, our drivers, certainly our administrators and our volunteers, and lastly, our board members. I want to thank you. Many of you have volunteered and stayed with us. This has been a very difficult time. I would like to affirm that we're earnestly seeking feedback from students and from parents through the period right now where conversations are being had with teachers and parents. Please, we want to know what may have gone well for you and for your families and for your children, and what challenges you experienced, so that we can build upon this. Regardless of when and how we come out on the other side of this, and we will, there are many silver linings that we can incorporate and consider. And that feedback is very important to us, and we hope you'll provide it. Students ended their school year, and it goes without saying that it was a difficult ending for them. It's also a difficult ending for our teachers. And I just want to give a personal shout out for them in terms of the incredible work that they've done during this period. It's not been easy. We literally had to, overnight on March 13th, go into a mode that none of us ever could have conceived. And that doesn't go without notice. We want to know, I want folks to know that we're very appreciative of their hard work and efforts, and all of the work that the good people have done to support our children. We know that everybody is doing the very, very best they can, and we're appreciative of that. With that, I would like to talk about something that has been on people's minds. It's a question that keeps me awake at night, and it's something that people think of often, and they should. Folks want to know when, how we will get back to school.
Mark, I don't mean to interrupt you, but the video feed for YouTube, I'm getting a message, has stopped. So I don't know if whoever's doing the video feed knows that or not, but the public is no longer able to view this meeting.
Thank you, Marie. And I know, I appreciate that. We're probably having some technical difficulties. We are still actively recording.
Okay.
And Julie, if you could just text Josh, please, just to make sure that we're still recording so that we can continue the meeting, and hopefully we'll get that feedback. Thank you very much, Marie. Heather, would you like me to continue? Thank you. So the purpose of formulating a group called the Safe Return to School Superintendent Advisory Group is as follows. We'd like to engage in a collaborative study in the discussions of the issues and logistics and the guidance related to possible configurations for the return to school in the fall. It goes without saying that there could be many, many different combinations, up to and including the in-person return of students to school unabated, to considerations of possible remote learning, hybrid in-person remote learning, so many combinations and possibilities. And this is something that superintendents and teachers and administrators and boards, parents are wrestling with all over the country. In an effort to make sure that we include as many stakeholders as possible and as many voices, I first want to say thank you to all the folks that reached out and volunteered, but there was no conceivable way that I felt I could put together a task force that would be able to do this work and not have it be in a position to have a working group. And in short, it's going to be very difficult to do that with 30 or so individuals, but we're going to roll up our sleeves and get it done. We plan to meet through the months of June and July with bringing some recommendations in early August. That's our plan. And it sounds like a long time, but it's really not. And if we are going to be prepared to open schools in whatever form that may be, we're going to be having to make some really difficult decisions. And we're going to have to make sure that we mobilize the resources and we have the supports to do so. And so that's why we have to really get this going as quickly as possible. I want folks to know that we'll be considering a lot of information, calendars, policies, statutes, recommendations for the Center for Disease Control, the Maine Department of Education, and many, many others. As many of you know, we are blessed with individuals and resources on this island that many people, and throughout our AOS, that many people do not have. And we seek to tap into those resources through community experts. So with that, and our students, I'd like to announce the people that I have selected and invited, and those that have agreed to serve on this task force. First, and these are in no certain order and no hierarchy, please. Student representation from MDI High School, Sarah Knox and Charlie Parker. For staff, and many of these staff fill a number of roles, so forgive me if I leave out one of those roles. Cindy Lambert, a K-8 technology teacher and also an association president. Dawn Burgess, a high school teacher and also an association president. Ashley Stanley, a kindergarten teacher from Tremont. Bonnie Norwood, a middle school teacher science teacher at Pematic. Brian Dion, a health and physical education teacher at Connors Emerson. Holly Causey Burr, a nurse at Mount Desert Island High School. Ian Braun, Ian, the Dean of Students at the high school, and Ian has been our point person and instrumental through our remote learning period on the logistics of how we can safely enter our buildings. Barb Neely, elementary principal at Connors Emerson. Bunky Dow, Director of Activities and Athletics for the high school. Crystal DeGrassa, a teaching principal who will represent Voice of the Outer Islands. Teresa Gray, Food Service Director at Trenton. Bob Williams, a custodian at Tremont. Suzanne Bishop, special education expertise, also speech and language at Connors Emerson, and K through 12 expertise. Tara McKernan, a counselor at MDES. And certainly, we wanted to make sure that the board was well represented, but we did not approach a quorum so that we were not in any violations of having any meetings that we should not. And so the board members who've reached out and also who have volunteered and have agreed to serve are as follows. Heidi Lawson from Tremont and Jessica Stewart from Tremont. We also have Dwayne Bolt from Bar Harbor, Gary Burr from Trenton, Todd Graham from Mount Desert, and Ingrid Kashmar from Southwest and the high school board. Charlie Ray, and Charlie fills two hats. He's certainly a board member, but Charlie is also Director of Educational Programming at the Jackson Laboratory and formerly served in a capacity at the BioLab. So wanted to make sure folks knew that role as well. Ann Ratcliffe serves as a trustee and as a parent. She'll be joining our group. And for community experts, Judy Sproul from the MDI BioLab has agreed to serve. I've reached out but not yet heard, so I'm going to hold off on this name, but I've reached out to somebody with former experiences in HR at both the Jackson Lab and the hospital who led some pretty significant times through those events. So we hope that individual will agree to serve. Mike Kears, parent and hospital representative and nurse. And lastly, Gareth Howell. Gareth is a parent and a scientist at the Jackson Lab. Forgive me if I left anybody out. I'm announcing those names for the first time. I will be sending all that information to the board, reaching out. We have a very ambitious schedule. I should also mention that Matt Haney, our principal at the high school, has stepped up to agree to facilitate this, and I've accepted because that's going to allow both Julie and myself and Melissa to be able to really serve in a role where we can be part of the process and make sure that we're very intent on moving forward with a good product. So Matt, thank you for stepping up and doing that. I'm sure there are a lot of questions, but I just want to say I'm very sensitive to the fact that there were people who volunteered, and I want to thank them and reached out. And we're just trying to make sure that as we move forward, we can have this group work and be efficient. And we will be providing updates to the board, and we will be providing a full accounting of all the information we consider, deliberate, and share that with the board and the public. With that, I'd like to move on to another piece, and that is the middle school question. I want to thank Marie Yarbrough and many others for keeping that squarely at the forefront. It's an important issue, and with all going on, we don't want to see that gets lost. So what I can report at this time is that Swans Island did include the middle school question on their ballot. It successfully was approved to move forward, and I'll read that question in a second, as did the Cranberry Isles. Then we were struck with COVID-19. I am aware that Mount Desert, and I've communicated with the town manager, has that ready when that town meeting occurs. That will be included, as well as Tremont and Southwest Harbor. I will follow up. I believe that's the case with Bar Harbor, but I will follow up with that as well. And certainly Trenton, and the last being Frenchboro, but I'm confident that the following question will be on the ballots, and I will confirm with each town manager or board. The question is as follows, quote, "Are you in favor of the school board continuing planning efforts for a combined district-wide middle school?" Note, a vote yes will tell the local board to continue planning efforts, including but not limited to developing conceptual drawings, cost estimates, potential locations, and a future referendum question. A no vote will tell local school boards to cease planning efforts for a combined district-wide middle school. So along with that information, I think it's very important for me to reach out to the Islander and other resources to make sure that voters are apprised of what the question is and what it is not. We are not asking anybody to build a middle school, to fund a middle school. We're simply vetting a question for continued purposes of discussion and planning. The next piece I'd like to share with the board is budgets. I'll just say that we are very open, and I know board members and board chairs have received this information, but I just want to, again, extend the opportunity for any town or town manager that would like to work with us to look at scheduling and holding their town meetings. We'll bring all the resources to bear to do that. I would offer carefully, and I say this carefully, but Matt's graduation last night, the high school graduation, I think was a really good case in showing how we can accomplish both social distancing and do that in a safe way, but have a forum where the community can come together. So I won't elaborate further, but I think we have a pathway, and we'd like to be able to work with our towns and managers and select boards should they wish to do so. I can anticipate too, the high school meeting, we'll talk about the high school budget, but I'll defer to Ingrid on that at that meeting. We also are receiving guidance from Maine School Management about how we can move forward during this uncertain time with condensing some of these articles while still making sure that we abide by local charter and statutes. I would say that Nancy is unavailable to be with us tonight because she's presently in a meeting in Bar Harbor for the budget, but we'll have follow-up information for that. Lastly, I'd like to close my report just by reiterating how painful it is to hear where we're at as a country. I want to reiterate, I issued a statement to families and to staff, and I would like to say that it saddens me to think we're at this point in the country. It saddens me personally, I think as an educator, I may have failed some students, but I want the board and the community to know how sensitive we are to this information and how we will work very, very hard to continue our efforts in denouncing racism and fully understand that racism in our society isn't a political issue. It's a human rights issue. I acknowledge that. And I know how difficult these conversations can be for some, but know that as a school, we know that if students and staff and people don't feel safe, they can't teach and they can't learn. It's very important we get this right, and we can't do it alone. So I want everyone to know in this community, whether you be a student, whether you be a parent, whether you be a community member, whether you be a board member, we are committed to continuing to do that work. And I'm sorry for the pain and suffering anybody has felt in their life or through a loved one. That's my report. And at this time, I'm pleased to take any questions, or Heather, turn it over to Julie Meltzer for her report.
Lily.
I don't have a question. I just want to thank you, Mark, for saying something, because I am always uncomfortable when we get such moving public comment and we can't respond. So I just appreciate that you said something, and I want everybody who wrote those moving letters to know that I'm not really sure how we're going to form maybe a group of people that can really work hard on this, and a new committee or something. I don't know, but I heard every word, and I want you to know you have my commitment to making sure that we address this and address it well. Thank you.
Thank you, Lily. Heidi, did you have your hand up? You're on. Okay.
So Lily, that was very well put, and I completely echo what she has to say, what she just said. I do want to just make a note that with that middle school ballot question, I think it would be really wise of us on the floors of our town meetings to reiterate that in the next coming year that there is no money expended. If we're at our local levels having to cut things out of our budgets for this school year and possibly next school year, because we don't know what's going to happen next year with the economy. I'm not saying that talk should stop. I don't think that we should stop researching. That's not what I'm saying at all. I think it would be very irresponsible for us at the local level to be cutting things out of our budget, but at the AOS level, expending money to look into this further for right now, with any plans or anything like that. And I just had to say that. I just don't think it's very responsible of us as an AOS district to spend that extra money if we're having to cut some, things that in our buildings, in our local buildings, that should probably be done, but we're putting them off because of what's been going on with the economy.
Thank you. Do I have, hang on one second, Mark, I'm just going to sort of toggle. Anyone else? All right, Mark.
I just want to apologize, looking at my list too. My apologies to Marie Yarborough. Marie has volunteered and is also on that task force. I'm sorry I didn't mention that earlier. Forgive me.
All right. Does anyone else have any other questions or comments from Mark on his report?
No, this is Jessica. I just want to thank you for your, just for clarifying, yes, exactly, that racism is a human rights issue and not a political issue. And that's so helpful. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks, Jessica. Marie.
I just wanted to piggyback on those comments as well and say thank you for clarifying that, Mark. And then also, I look forward to some action items related to some of the things that the board members have brought up, especially some of the offers for help in those and calls to action, really, in those really fantastic public comments. And I also would say, I don't necessarily have time to read all the emails that come through from the MDEOE, like everybody probably doesn't have, but I was particularly struck by the really good email that just came out that Mark forwarded to us, I think the other day, that particularly called out ways in which we should be looking at our curriculum and ways in which we should be looking really holistically at the kind of education that we're preparing for our students, focused on equity, focused on not running from tough questions, but rather gathering the data and gathering the resources we need to have our students learn how to grapple these questions. And I'm not going to repeat everything that everybody else said, but we know if we're not talking about it in the classroom and teaching and helping to supplement the hopefully positive conversations that are happening at home about this, then we're doing our kids a really big injustice. So I was happy to see that email come through, and I thought it had some really poignant places to start. So I look forward to action items related to that in the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Marie. Okay. Anybody else? All right. Seeing none, I am going to turn over to Julie Meltzer for her report and updates.
Hi, everyone. I'm a little bit concerned because I know that the YouTube has been stopped. And while I know we're still legal because we are recording, I know also that a number of people are quite upset right now. And that seems really unfortunate because I think people really wanted to listen in.
Do we know that it has not been
Not
restarted?
that. No. Looks like Josh is on it trying to make things happen, but it's unfortunate because there's not a way to easily give everyone another link because we don't know who was watching. So
Right.
I just want to acknowledge that I'm sorry that that happened. I have been asked to address 3 pieces in my report. The first is the ESSER CARE funds. We did receive funding. It was a lot less funding than what I think people thought we were going to get. However, it was based on our Title I formula, and it was about 80% of those Title I funds. The A team got together. We were looking at just under $100,000 from the combined K-8s and $33,467.74 for the high school. And the A team got together and identified, based on our needs assessments, how we should work with those funds. And I wanted to share with the board what those decisions were. For the K-8 portion of the funding, we wanted to make sure that we were funding social emotional support for students, something that the board has also said they are very concerned about. We have a backlog of testing for kids, and I don't mean academic testing, I mean for to determine what kinds of special education services they might be eligible to receive. We purchased the K2 iPads, and we were glad to know that that was one of the things on the list that you could get reimbursement for. We also put in money for learning materials because we know that, for example, it would be very helpful should we have to jump from in-person to remote or to go back and forth, for students to have some more hands-on kits, and in some cases some workbooks, and in some cases some pieces that would help with making things hands-on and not all on the computer. So that's one of the ways that we were looking at that. We also looked at putting some money in for after-school tutoring and for to augment the teacher instructional grants. We had more than 80 teachers this year apply for instructional summer work and instructional grants to do what we're calling amphibious design, going back and forth between remote and in-person learning. The high school, we looked at the 33,000 plus, and we put money into the social emotional supports and programming that we're hoping to do, some into tutoring, and then the rest into the summer instructional grants for high school teachers. Just wanted the board to be aware that we had received the funding. It was not as much as we had hoped, but that we worked to match it to what we felt were the highest needs of the district. As soon as all of the towns have put the agreement to collaboratively have Bar Harbor be the fiscal agent, most of the towns have done this at this point, but not all of them. As soon as that happens, I can put in the K-8 application, and we already put in the high school one. I've been asked by many of the teachers, what do we say to parents if they ask us what's going to be happening next year? And I think Mark summed it up rather well. We don't know. But I did want to make a couple of statements based on some of the places we are now and what we're looking at, just so the board also has that information. We do not know yet if we will be opening up school in person or remotely or in some combination of the two. If we open up school remotely, we will certainly do a number of things differently in the fall. Even if we open up in person, we will be using some technology platforms and tools to communicate, to manage workflow, and to make learning expectations and structures more explicit and visible to students, parents, and support staff. This will improve teaching and learning and communication and ensure that students are prepared should we need to move to remote learning sometime in the next year. We are gathering feedback from parents, teachers, and staff, and middle and high school students. Teachers and administrators will be spending considerable time and energy this summer revamping how we do school based on our experiences this spring, the feedback we get, and by looking at effective ways that schools are handling some of these same issues across the globe. I was also asked, are there any questions about the ESSER CARES or about that statement? I just want you to be able to say that we are going to be doing things differently going forward. I was also asked if I could give a summary to where we are in our district with diversity and inclusivity, anti-racism programming. And I just wanted to do that very quickly. And then I am going to work with Mark. We got several requests that people can't see exactly what we're doing up on the website. So we're going to do something so that we can make that clearer. I just want to say that we just concluded this spring with the middle and high school social studies teachers a complete revamping of the standards. And that was came after a project to decolonize our curriculum that I've spoken about in collaboration with the Abbey Museum. I think if people read the new standards and read the mission statement and read how the scope and sequence looks now, I think you'll see some significant differences. I'm very proud of our teachers who worked very hard on that with me and Julie Kay. I think some of you remember that I put in an MDI-EEF proposal for more multicultural books in K-8 classroom libraries. This is built on a years-long effort to provide more diverse books for middle and high school, including for whole class reads, and to provide more diverse books in all MDI-RSS school libraries. Upcoming, we are about to embark in COVID-19 interrupted planned professional development for all of the middle and high school social studies teachers on facilitating, on training students on how to have conversations about difficult topics. And it's a particular training that kids would be doing from 5th through 12th grade. And I feel very strongly that one of the things we have to do for looking forward is that we have to give kids skills on how to have these conversations and how to make sure that everybody's voice is heard and how to make sure everyone's included in the conversation and that the conversation moves in a direction that is thoughtful and that helps everybody to collaborate on their thinking and on a solution and provides everybody the opportunity to hear others' perspectives. We have a very high commitment to this work. Touchstones has agreed to do a virtual training that will be happening on June 17th and 18th, and then a follow-up training on August 19th. And almost all of our middle school and high school social studies teachers will be participating in that. Upcoming as well, one of our administrators offered to facilitate how to be an anti-racist book study group. Our intent was to take the discussion guide from that book and to have a round one with about 12 people. And we already have people on the wait list, and we will continue to do rounds of that as long as there are people who are interested in doing that work together. In the fall, we'll have implementation of Touchstones in grades 5 through 11 and the new social studies standards. We'll do a 7th grade read in the fall as usual. This year we had already selected the book early this spring, Call Me American, the middle school version by Abdi Noor Iftin, who will also be visiting either remotely or in person. We will do YES training for all 7th graders for the 5th year. We will also continue to do anti-bullying programming for grades 5 and 6. This will be the 3rd year this fall. COVID-19 interrupted the enthusiastic readers, which focused on books, fiction and nonfiction about the immigrant experience to America, including a lot of discussion of racism and presentation of some really challenging situations and topics. And we had planned with a group, with a collaboratory, to do the March 20th professional development, getting to know our neighbors through their arts, Wabanaki, Northeast Native American, Franco and French Canadian, and Mexican Americans. I feel very strongly that getting to know people on a personal basis and through their arts is the best way to get people connected. I also feel that we have to be able to guarantee to our board that our students are going through their K-12 experience, pre-K-12 experience, seeing representations of many, many different people, types of people, and places in the literature that they read and in the films that they watch, and that it's by helping kids to develop those conversation skills for civil discourse that we're going to be able to go forward. I appreciate all of the input, and I feel like we have something to start from. We're not starting from zero. I look forward to those conversations and to moving forward, to doing a review of our program and to seeing what we can do better going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. I think that was really helpful for a lot of us to hear that. Do I have anyone, does anyone have questions for Julie? Seeing none. I'll just move right into discussion item, and it kind of plays off of what Julie was talking about. And again, I do really appreciate everything that you shared. I think it's, and I understand too that it's unfortunate that the YouTube is not working, because I think there's a lot of information in there that's helpful to the public to know what we have been doing and that we have a springboard to continue to work from. We have received a couple of requests from people to, as an AOS, to take a position with respect to racism. And I have been working on drafting basically a position, and I want to share that with everybody. I am going to attempt to share my screen so that you can see the statement. I'll read it, but sometimes people need both. Oh, the host disabled my sharing. And he's probably trying to work on the YouTube. All right, well,
he is, Heather. Apparently, what I want to reiterate is that we are recording and we will upload this to YouTube. I want to apologize, but Josh is working on that. I think, Josh, I think you can hear me. Can you enable Heather's screen, please, to present?
Heather, I've made you a co-host, which should allow you to present.
There we go. Thank you very much, Josh. So hopefully everybody sees this statement. Okay, great. So I'll just read it, but again, I wanted to share it because sometimes people like the visual. The AOS 91 school board joins with the millions of people in our state, our country, and all across the globe in condemning racism of all forms, and we reiterate the sentiments articulated by our superintendent in his recent letter to the community. As school leaders, we believe that we have a special responsibility in the fight against racism, bigotry, and hatred. And we recognize that words alone are not sufficient. Rather, we intend to commit the time and resources necessary to provide our administrators, staff, and students with the support they need to work toward a world that is fairer, more just, and more compassionate to all. I don't know if I have to go back to this screen in order to see people if they have comments. So I'm going to stop the sharing. But if at any time someone wants to look at it again, or if you want to take a screenshot of it, let me know. So it's, I'd like everybody to hear it again or, reread it, but it's I'd like as a school board to come out with a position. And I felt that this one was a really nice statement because what it does is it shares a view, it shares a wish, it shares a desire, and then it allows us to be, thoughtful and measured as we move forward and figure out how to proceed. I think Julie also shared a lot of information with us about what has been done and or what we have been working on for both students, administrators, and staff and teachers. I think it's an opportunity for us to take a look at that and ask the questions of what else can we be doing, where are there holes, and this statement allows us that time to effectively look at that. So we'll take comments or questions. Tammy?
Is there a way to up on the like where we can see it again, or I missed getting a screenshot of it?
Yeah, I can. You know, I will share again. Mark, do you want to be my eyes and call on people?
Certainly, Heather, I can do that. If you, I saw Dwayne's hand first, and then I can just go in that direction.
Thank you.
I'm in the same boat as you, though, right now, in that my screen is limited. So when you're presenting, I can't see everybody either. I did see Dwayne. You know, I don't know if there's another way to project this because I just can't see everybody.
Okay. All right. The other thing that I can quick try and do is just email this out to everybody too.
Yeah.
I got a screenshot, so I'm good. But yeah.
All right, I found that. All right, so I heard Dwayne and then Tammy. So we'll do that, and then I'll keep toggling through people.
Thank you, Mark. I think that's a very good statement, and I want to make sure to follow up with actions. I mean, especially after, you know, what's said in Black Lives Matter march yesterday.
I can't hear you.
Where,
I know.
Nobody can hear. I don't know if it's just me, but I can't hear anything
Okay.
you're saying.
All right, I can't either. I'm right.
Cases of
Dwayne, we can't hear you.
racism as well as anti-Semitism. I want to make sure that we take positive actions. I know that our administrators will do everything in their power.
Dwayne, we are not able to hear you.
Sorry about that. This is my internet.
Yeah. Can I go to Tammy and then maybe come back to you, see if your internet cleared up?
Can anyone hear me?
You're
No.
frozen and your voice is on about like 20 times slower than it should be. Maybe you want to log out and then log back in.
Okay, let me.
Okay. Tammy.
I grew up down south, and this whole period has been, this past week is so painful, dredging up a lot of memories. You so hope that things have changed, and I just think it's really powerful that we put a statement out there to say that we are taking this seriously and that we are not just paying attention, but that we are going to take a plan of action, make a plan of action going forward, so that all of our students and all the people in our communities feel that they are seen, that they are heard, and that we care about them and that their lives matter. And just thank you for putting that together, Heather. That is powerful, and I hope that the people that wrote letters in know that we are, as a board and as a community, taking everything seriously, and that somehow we will find a way to go forward.
Thank you, Tammy. Thank you.
Heather, excuse me. There is a way for board members to raise their hand. If you want, Matt can walk us through that real quickly. It'll help you manage the meeting. I'm sorry.
Sure, I saw Matt said he raised his hand, so. Sure, Matt, how do you do that?
So if you go on the bottom of the screen where it says participants, and it says like that says 36, if you click on that window and open it,
yep.
At the bottom of it, it gives you the option to raise hand.
Great. Okay. Thank you. All right. Is anyone raising their hand? Marie.
I would say one thing I feel like is missing. It's a really nice statement to, to start with. I think we need to invite parents into this. Where is it? I know it says really giving the time to provide our administrators, our staff, our students, and our parents. I know that our job is not to teach parents, but I think that's we've always talked about we're part of this community. I mean, we figure out a way to meet our families' food needs. We figure out how to meet our families' emotional needs. And I know probably a lot of parents that sometimes the kids are just sometimes a little more able to talk about these things and their parents aren't really prepared to yet for whatever reason. Maybe they've never had to have those conversations, or they never learned how to have those conversations. But I think it's important to invite parents into this somehow and let them know that we're here for whatever we're working on is a resource for them to help navigate these issues as well.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Marie. Do I have other?
This is Jessica.
Yes.
I think it's a great statement. I mean, I'm fine with it how it is. If I might just add at the very end where you're talking about working towards a fairer world, explicitly name that we want to work towards a world where racial justice and equity is a reality and not an aspiration. Or, I mean, it's a totally minor point. I'm fine with it how it is, but yeah, that's my only thought.
Thank you, Jessica. Bunky, I see you raise your hand.
Yeah, I just want to say that since March 13th, we've been all over the place. Seems like we take 3 or 4 steps forward, then we take 10 back, just due to everything that's going on. After yesterday's celebration, I felt very excited, ready to end the season on a positive note. And then today, we get hit with this situation that, unbeknownst to me and anything that I would ever think of, to have one student, let alone 100, feel like that, it really is saddening and hard to hear. I have done a couple things today and reached out to some coaches, and I reached out to the individual, Charlie, and we're going to start something, an educational program to deal with issues and how we're going to address this stuff moving forward. I'm upset that it happened, but at the same token, I'd be naive to don't think it doesn't happen. It's an eye opener for me, and it's on my watch, and I'm going to address this moving forward where this can be an educational solution, and hopefully, the statement that the board's going to make will be powerful, and people will jump on board and support it moving forward. So I hear it loud and clear, and I thank you, and hopefully soon we can be meeting in public together.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Bunky. I see Dwayne is back and your hand is raised. Would you like to try again?
I'm stopping the video, so hopefully that maybe helps. Can everybody hear me?
A little bit better. It's going in and out, but give it a try.
Okay, sorry. I do like the statement. I do think that, and thank you, Monkey, for stepping up and reaching out to the child who brought up the issues. I also want to make sure that we have some way, as a statement, as a school board, and policies that we can work on to let them feel comfortable coming forward. I know people don't like to feel like they're ratting out their friends or go to administrators or anything like that, and then that makes it even harder for them to do what's right. But I think that we need to somehow create a way forward to people to report those type of things, because obviously those people did not feel comfortable bringing it forward, and whether they believe that.
Now we've lost you, Dwayne. It was choppy.
No, and they didn't, or whether somebody actually knew or not. That
Dwayne
needs to be made sure that it is that they feel comfortable, what's an anonymous type thing. So I want to make sure we have an action behind it is basically what I'm trying to get at.
Thank you.
Not just along with our statement, make sure there's actual actions. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Dwayne.
Hello?
I have John Eisenhower.
I think the kids, most of the kids, I have an interracial family, and we've run into some issues over the years. I found, the most part, the kids in our schools are stuck up for others, and it's been great. Occasionally, found that administrators or teachers weren't really sure what to do about the issue, and that perhaps more effort could be spent there. The result sort of from the school side being, well, kids will be kids, and we'll talk about this, but my children coming back thinking that nothing really ever came of it. But in general, I think our schools certainly much better than my experience growing up in public schools in the city. We do a much better job today than we did when we were kids. There's always room for improvement.
Yes. Thank you, John. Thank you, everybody, for your statements. And it sounds, we're all in this together, and we all want to move forward to a much more constructive and inclusive and caring environment. This request for this position is not on the agenda under an action item, but I believe we have the right, the capability to take action on it. If this is something, if this statement, people are comfortable with it, I'd love to have action, take a motion on it. Marie did recommend putting parents in there, and I understand her reasoning, and I think that's probably a good inclusion. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good.
I move to accept the statement presented by Heather with the inclusion of parents in the text.
I second that.
Great. Do we have any more comments or questions that around this particular statement? Mark, and then Todd, I see you.
Madam Chair, if you could just, if the board does approve this, if you could just email that verbiage to Selena for the minutes, that would be perfect. Thank you very much.
I definitely will, yes. And then Todd, you had your hand up?
Yep. So I am a non-voting member this evening, but this is important to me. I think it should be important to all of us. And I want to voice that I do approve this, even though I am a non-voting member tonight. I'm glad to see that this is a motion and was seconded, and hopefully will be approved.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, Todd. I think that, yes, we have this process of voting members and non-voting members, and now it's even more defined because of working via Zoom. So I'll go through the list of voting members, and then I'm happy to go through the list of the non-voting members just for them to share their piece, because I do think that it's really important if we're all on board with this and support it, it's important to have that known. Are there any other questions before I start the vote? All right, I'm not seeing any. Thank you, Matt, for that trick about the hand, because that's really helpful. So voting members.
I had a question.
Yes, Kate?
So I don't know, I think I heard Dwayne saying this in his
garbled piece, but I think it should go without saying that we should include some term like religious affiliation or something like that in this, that it's not just, in fact, and maybe you already have that in the language. I don't have my screenshot, but it would be, I think it would be appropriate to include that language in there, because that certainly is of potential discrimination as well.
So what we have is, as school leaders, we believe that we have a special responsibility in the fight against racism, bigotry, and hatred. And we recognize that words alone are not sufficient. Rather, we intend to commit, and it goes on. So while I think maybe a bit of my concern is, if you do religious affiliation, then do you need to start to identify all protected classes versus that the hatred, I think, probably is inclusive of behaviors.
Yeah, I get that. I see that.
All right.
This is Jessica. I mean, obviously I want people of all, no discrimination against anyone based on their religion or their sexual orientation or their anything, but it seems like appropriate in this moment for us to speak directly to racism. And I think people will understand that we're not meaning like it's okay to discriminate based on other things or something. We're just addressing what's, right in front of us right now. But I don't know, that seems fine to me.
Thank you, Jessica.
Cool.
Mark.
Madam Chair, I defer to the board, but I might recommend, I think you've been very careful and considerate, and I think the community would appreciate a message from the board. It certainly doesn't preclude the board from coming back and amending their statement. Moreover, doing some work with our mission statement in other areas to include policies. I don't believe personally that this is going to be unfinished work. I think the fact that you're considering language like this and you're trying to be inclusive of all is really important. But I would suggest that not to be limited by some words, knowing full well that you're going to come back and revisit this issue in the near term.
Okay, thank you. All right. I appreciate everyone's comments and support. Tammy. You're on mute.
Could you just add the word discrimination there? Because that would cover other types of discrimination going forward. I'm looking at the statement. It does say racism, bigotry, and hatred cover a lot, but if we added, they're all discrimination. That's you're making other people feel less. But if that would make some people in our group feel better, that it is more far-reaching, even though we are in the moment regarding racism as our top priority. Like Mark said, we could add it at a later date, but I think it's powerful that we put this statement out as soon as possible.
Yep, I agree. Dwayne.
Hi, hopefully it's better because I changed devices. I think it was maybe a device situation. I think that it's a strong statement, and I think I like it as is. And I think in the context of what's going on, I think it's better to stick with one topic because we're addressing something that's going on. I hope that everybody does know that we stand against any discrimination for any reasons. But I think in the context, I think it's just fine, like Mark said, to stick to a single topic and forcefully and loudly make our statement on that point.
Thank you, Dwayne. All right. Seeing no more hands being raised, I will go through and start getting asking for people's vote. So let's see, Teresa LeClaire.
Approve.
Kate Chaplin.
Approved.
Heather Jones, I approve. Dwayne Bolt.
Approve.
Robin Sue Tapley. Robin Sue. Oh.
I approve.
All right, thank you. Marie Yarborough,
Approve.
Lily Simas.
Approve.
Thank you. Susan Allen,
Approve.
Ingrid Kashmar,
Approve.
Jim Sawyer,
Approve.
Heidi Lawson,
Approve.
Jessica Stewart,
Approve.
Gary Burr,
Approve.
Darcy Throckmorton,
Approve.
Aaron Brown,
Approve.
and Tammy Tripler.
Approve.
Thank you, everybody. So that was unanimously approved. And as I said, I am going to go back through the non-voting and give them the opportunity to support or not. Todd Graham.
I approve.
Thank you. Christy LaSquadro. Is she here? I thought I saw Christy. She might not be here anymore.
It was at a warrant committee meeting.
Oh, okay. But for some reason, I thought I saw her. Okay. Is John Bench here? Nope. John Eisenhower.
Approve.
Thank you. And I don't think we have anybody else from Tremont. We don't have Jessica Bass or Roger Sandermom. And then from Trenton, did I see Tom Reeves? Nope. Okay. And I didn't see Jennifer. And then I don't believe we have anybody else from the other islands. Am I correct, Mark? Okay.
That is correct.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate that. I appreciate the dialogue. And I think one of the things that, we as a board can discuss is, what we would like to see happen going forward. So put the statement out and we can go there.
Heather.
Mark, is it all right if I move to action items?
Heather,
Yes.
we do have a board member from Swans who's joined us. Do you want her to vote? Emmy Sawyer.
And who is it?
Emmy Sawyer joined during the conversation, and she's from Swans Island.
Wonderful. Emmy, I'm very sorry that I did not pick up on that. Would you like to provide a vote on that statement?
I approve.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Thanks, Crystal. Julie.
I just want to say thank you. I feel really honored to be working for a system where what just happened can happen. And I feel really, really supported by everyone on the board. And I look forward to working with you to build on what we already have and make it better.
Thank you, Julie. Thanks. All right. Mark, I will move. And Dan, thank you so much for your patience.
So I just will quickly say how proud I am to serve as your superintendent. You guys are incredible, and that's a very bold step. Thank you very much. With that, Dan, I can't see you. Are you still with us, Dan?
I am. Here I am.
All right, there's Dan. You're looking sharp too with your tie, Dan. You're very patient. It is my privilege and pleasure to introduce to the board Dan Rinkovitz. Dan is a school psychologist. Dan is my nominee for the school psychologist position. It was a pleasure to meet with Dan. Certainly, those of you that are familiar with Margarita, we will miss her in her retirement, but we believe that we found a really exemplary candidate in Dan for the district-wide school psychologist position. Dan was interviewed by a wide committee of administrators and staff. Dan holds a master's in counseling psychology and has completed a school psychology certificate program. He is also certified as a Maine school psychologist. Dan has 20 years of experience as a school psychologist between 3 districts in Delaware. And he has MDI connections. Dan is no stranger to the island. And Dan, in my interview with him, was just thrilled to have the opportunity to be considered to come to MDI. He can speak to that if he'd like. But I am pleased to recommend Dan for this position, school psychologist through the AOS. Heather, through you, if you have any questions for Dan or you'd like to ask him anything or have him speak, I'll defer to you.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you, Dan, and welcome. Yep, do you want to share just a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Dan Rinkowitz. I have vacationed and traveled to MDI 26 times, 23 years in a row. And my wife and I really enjoy the culture, the experience, the people on MDI. We've gotten to know some locals, which we really appreciate. And I was kind of waiting for an opportunity to present itself. And Margarita and I have become friends over the years. And she emailed me last summer and said, this could be it for me. So I couldn't believe it. I thought the opportunity would happen in some time, but it happened this year. So my wife and I are avid runners. We enjoy doing so many things that the island offers. And we really got to know some families and some students that we really appreciated trying to support and help you guys. I'm coming from a pretty large district. There's about 16,000 students. In my field, there's 58 school psychologists in my school district, if you can believe it. So it's a very large, diverse district. So I bring a lot of experience working with different populations. I've worked K to 12. I've worked before being a school psychologist. I worked in a called the Devereux Foundation, a mental health facility that really is really opened my eyes to all the theories and things about psychology that you read and hear about. So I'm excited about this opportunity, and I'm looking forward to meeting you guys. I wanted to show my face, so I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions they'd like to ask, or does someone want to make a motion?
I move to approve the hiring of Dan Rankovitz. I'm going to say your last name. Sorry.
Wrinkle like a wrinkle in a witch. It's all good.
As the new school psychologist.
Second.
Heidi seconds.
Thank you, Selena. Did you get that? Does anyone have any questions, comments? Seeing nobody waving their hand or raising it on the side, I will go through the voting again. Let's see, Teresa LeClaire.
Approve.
Kate Joplin.
Approved.
Heather Jones, approve. Dwayne Bolt.
Approve.
Robin Sue Topley. Did Robin Sue approve? Do we still have her? Oh, there you are. Yay. Okay. For some reason, it's not working. Marie Yarborough.
Approve.
Lily Simas.
Approve.
Susan Allen.
Approve.
Ingrid Kashmar.
Approve.
Jim Sawyer.
Approve.
Heidi Lawson.
Approve.
Jessica Stewart.
Approve.
Gary Burr.
Approve.
Darcy Throckmorton.
Approve.
Aaron Brown.
Approve.
And Tammy Tripler.
Approve.
And then Emmy Sawyer.
Approve.
Okay. Unanimous. Well, welcome, Dan. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations, Dan. Welcome.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. And thank you. Mark, do you, the next action item?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Bunky Dow, I'd like to defer to him, but this recommendation is basically, we have a policy on physical examination of students, and so recommendation is consistent with the times we're in with COVID-19. I want to thank Bunky for the work he's done and the liaison he's done with our nurses. So I'll defer to Bunky on what we're asking and give an overview of that.
Okay.
So what I'm asking is the Maine Principal Association, under the guidance of the Sports Medicine Committee for the MPA and also the National Federation Sports Management Committee, has made a recommendation. This is not a mandate, it's just a recommendation that school systems look to waive a 1-year waiver for all physicals. In our situation, we do physicals 7th, 9th, and 11th grade. They're required to have a physical, and any incoming new students, that's freshmen or any transfers, are required to have a physical. They're recommending that school districts take a 1-year waiver for this, use their previous physicals that they've had, due to the following: the hardships this could cause on the medical professions, and also the hardship it could cause on families who may have lost jobs, insurance, and so on and so forth, where the burden will come onto the school if we make this requirement. In this recommendation, they're asking that students be granted this waiver would do an extensive student health form, which would be reviewed by the medical people, our nurse, our trainer. And if there's any red flags, then we would have those students have a physical. Dr. Williams Hines, who's the head of the Maine Principal Association Sports Medicine Committee and the National Federation Committee, and well-known and knowledgeable in the medical field for athletics, is the one that is making this recommendation. We also have 3 members from the state of Maine on the National Federation Committee. So this comes with a lot of insight. There's a lot of other professionals on this committee. We would waive all, this would be an amendment to our current policy. I met with the nurses, all the school nurses, and they, after they understood the concept and the thought process for this, they're all in favor of this, with the idea that we would still offer physicals, but if parents couldn't do it or we had issues with the medical people providing them, they could get that waiver. We at the high school will still offer free physicals because of the contract we have with them. We have that already scheduled for the first 3 days, 14th, 15th, and 17th of August, so people can still have that. I think basically that's it in a nutshell. So I would ask that we do a 1-year amendment to the current policy on physicals starting July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021.
Does anyone have questions for Bunky on this? Lily?
So if kids were to have a physical, you say they don't have to, but if they have one this year, will they be on a different every other year schedule, or will they then have to have another one next year to keep everyone on the same every other year?
If they choose not to have a physical, say you're a freshman, so you're gonna have it your sophomore year. Right now, the recommendation is they'll have to have it the junior year, but we may revisit that.
Okay.
All right, Heidi?
So you said that if we waive this, there'll be an extensive like a health form that they have to fill out. What happens? I mean, I know that sometimes scheduling the physicals are tough, especially with the backlog that the medical facilities had. If they were able to schedule within, by the start of school, would that be acceptable instead of filling out that huge health packet or whatever it looks like?
I would say if we approve this amendment, yes, there would be, if they could get in, I think that would be acceptable.
Right, replacing a physical with paperwork it's always better to have the physical, right?
Right, and that's where the nurses were coming from, which I agree.
Gotcha.
Do I have any other questions? Seeing none, does someone want to make a motion?
I move to adopt the 1-year modification to JLCA physical examinations of students.
Thank you, Heidi. Is there a second?
Second, Ingrid.
Thank you, Ingrid. All right, is there any further discussion or questions? All right, seeing none, I will go to our voting. Teresa Leclerc.
All right, I had to unmute. Yes, I do approve.
All right, Kate Chaplin.
Approve.
Heather Jones, I approve. Dwayne Bolt.
I approve.
Thank you. Robin Sue Tapley. Approve. All right, Robin Sue approves. Marie Yarborough.
Approve.
Thank you. Lily Simas.
Approve.
Thank you. Susan Allen.
Approve.
Ingrid Kashmar.
Approve.
John Sawyer. Jim Sawyer. Sorry, I was looking at two names. Thank you, Jim. Heidi Lawson.
Approve.
Jessica Stewart.
Approve.
Thank you. Gary Burr.
Approve.
Darcy Throckmorton.
Approve.
Aaron Brown.
Approve.
Tammy Tripler.
Approve.
Thank you. And Emmy Sawyer.
Approve.
Wonderful. It's unanimous. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Monkey, very much. All right, Mark, last one, authorization for superintendent to hire during the summer months.
Yeah, I'll take any questions, but that's certainly not in lieu of the board's approval. And I anticipate we're going to be continuing to meet during the summer, so it may be moot, but I would appreciate if the board would consider that approval.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions? This is something we've typically done. I believe the process is if there is a hire, you send the information out, and the board has 3 days to send back any questions or concerns or.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
I move to authorize the superintendent to hire during the summer months.
Thanks, Heidi. Is
Second.
that Lily?
Susan.
Oh, Susan. Thank you. All right. Seeing no questions, I will move to the vote. Teresa LeClaire. Kate Chaplin.
Approved.
Heather Jones, approve. Dwayne Bolt.
Approve.
Robin Sue Tapley.
Approve.
Approve. Marie Yarborough.
Approve.
Thank you. Lily Simas.
Approve.
Susan Allen.
Approve.
Ingrid Kashmar.
Approve.
Jim Sawyer.
Approve.
Thank you. Heidi Lawson.
Approve.
Jessica Stewart.
Approve.
Gary Burr.
Approve.
Darcy Throckmorton.
Approve.
Aaron Brown.
Approve.
Tammy Tripler.
Approve.
And Emmy Sawyer.
Approve.
All right. Wonderful. Thank you. And then other business. Mark, do we have other business?
None at this time, Madam Chair. And we also have no additional public comment at this time, but if we do receive any, we will certainly provide it to the board for the next meeting.
Okay. Future agenda items, we'll have the opening of the school probably in August. I believe we'll be talking about racism and curriculum and what we are doing and where we can continue to improve at the next meeting. Anything else?
I think the most pressing work is going to be, and again, there are two important topics, but the safe return to school group is going to be really active, and we want to make sure the board and the community are engaged in that.
Okay.
That'll be our number one priority unless the board tells us otherwise, along with all the other important issues we're dealing with.
Okay. Thank you. The next meeting, we have a to be determined, but it's my suggestion that we at least pencil it on our calendars for July 13th, which would be the second Monday of July.
Sounds good.
And before I take a motion to adjourn, I just want to say I'm sorry, Ingrid, for going over.
Just let everybody remember that as soon as you get out of this meeting, you're going to go to the other email from Selena that has the Zoom meeting for the high school board meeting, please.
Yep.
And Heather, if I just can remind, this has been recorded. I apologize to the public, but this will be uploaded, and Josh will provide us the link as to where that can be found so we can share that with people. Thank you.
Yep. All right. And we should probably, Mark, make that, maybe send that out in an email to people, to the, the school.
Yes.
Okay.
Will do.
All right. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second. Dwayne.
Thank you. And it's not debatable because we have another meeting. So I'll go through. Teresa LeClaire.
Approve.
Kate Chaplin.
Approved.
Heather Jones, approve. Dwayne Bolt.
Approve.
Robin Sue Tapley. Got the thumbs up. She approves. Marie Yarborough.
Approve.
Lily Simus.
Approve.
Susan Allen.
Approve.
Ingrid Kashmar.
Approve.
Jim Sawyer.
Approve.
Heidi Lawson.
Approve.
Jessica Stewart.
Approve.
Gary Burr.
Approved.
Darcy Throckmorton.
Approve.
Aaron Brown.
Approve.
Tammy Tripler.
Approve.
And Emmy Sawyer.
Approve.
Wonderful. Thank you, everybody. And we'll see most of you again at the next meeting.